2, 1. Good afternoon. Welcome to the weekly edition of The Wrap. I'm Laura Leslie, WRAL Capitol Bureau Chief.
And I'm Travis Fain, one of WRAL's state government reporters.
And I'll apologize right now for being hoarse. I'm getting over a sinus infection, so I'm a little froggy. Sorry about that. It's been a busy week. We had the veto override session on Tuesday, 5 vetoes, bringing their total for the year to 19, I believe, which is a record for a year.
19 overrides.
19 overrides, yeah. So that's a record for a calendar year. That's not a record for a complete biennial session, but they're certainly teed up to break that record next session.
Yeah, it sounds about right. Yeah, let's just keep ramping it up to 11.
In the meantime, there were I don't even know that they had both signed off on the bill before the first lawsuit was filed on 747. That's one of the 2 election bills that was overridden and enacted on Tuesday. This is the one that loosens the poll observer rules to allow them to get closer to you, to photograph you, to hear to listen to what you're saying, to the poll judges, whatever. And then it also rolls back that 3-day grace period that North Carolina passed unanimously. I think it was like 2009 or 2011, something like that. Not that long ago, but it is now going to say that if your ballot doesn't get to the local county elections board by 7:30 on election night evening, then it doesn't count no matter when you mailed it.
Yeah, that's right, except for, of course, military ballots. DNC and the State Democratic Party filed a lawsuit on this one, as did some other...
Down home, North Carolina, I think, is the group.
Mark Elias is the attorney on the other one. So, 2 lawsuits targeting that, making various arguments. There's some changes to same-day registration in the bill, and I can't remember exactly.
Basically, they only have to send you one thing to confirm, one postcard to confirm that you live where you live, and if it comes back, then they pull your ballot.
I see. So, if it comes back as undelivered, or does it come back with what you're supposed to do?
Right, but I just think about the amount of mail I get that is not my mail.
Well, that I know the Elias lawsuit is challenging, and then the DNC has, they're all making a number of arguments, but the poll observer rules and the 3-day ballot, the poll observer rules would encourage voter intimidation is their argument, and the 3-day ballot just makes it harder to vote. In a number of ways.
Nobody has filed suit yet on 749, which is the one that reshuffles the elections boards. It seems sure that somebody's going to have to file on that.
Yeah, it's 12:25 on Friday as we're recording this, and we're not aware of a lawsuit being filed yet, but we both fully expect one possibly by the time y'all hear this. So.
Yeah, absolutely. The other bills, not that they were not also important, 512 has already been challenged by Cooper.
That's the appointments bill.
Right. That's the one that takes away a bunch of appointments on really big boards and commissions and gives them to either lawmakers or to other members of the executive branch. And then the 600 reg reform was another one that went back and forth. And there was a lot of discussion about sort of there's a provision in that bill that sort of undoes the state's historically underutilized businesses.
Yeah, there's something,
program.
It changes something with contracting that I can't say I fully understand, but it sounds like makes it less likely for female-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses to get contracts, or undermines a process that has aided them.
Right, and Gladys Robinson talked about this a lot on the Senate floor the other day, and talked about how that program has been in place for, I think she said 18 years, something around that range, to try to encourage women-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses to do business with the state. But apparently, what we've heard is that there was complaints within the state that there wasn't enough support for that program coming from DOA. DOA says they'd like to keep the program, but reg reform would just cut it.
And it does a number of other things, too. It aids the Mountain Valley Pipeline, the Southgate extension that would come into Alamance County, a number of other water and various environmental regulations being rolled back. And then the other one I think that was overridden is 678. That's the one that changes the phrase renewable energy
to clean energy. Right.
It basically to benefit nuclear in state code. Obviously concerns about nuclear waste and other dangers from nuclear. All power generation has dangers, though.
Well, and it also makes it easier for Duke to meet the renewable portfolio energy standard because it's no longer going to be renewable, I guess. It's going to be clean. So Duke can just count its nuclear toward that, so it doesn't have to buy more solar and wind.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Although I think they're going to continue to buy solar and wind because
it's cheap.
That's the trend, and as they retire the coal plants as required under separate legislation. But yeah, it has been clear for a while that It's particularly Senate Republicans led by Paul Newton, a former Duke Energy executive, favor nuclear energy as a bigger part of the mix going forward. And it's already in, the power at my house in Cary comes from a nuclear plant. Shearer? Plant Shearer?
Sharon Harris.
Yeah, Sharon Harris.
Sharon Harris. Also, another lawsuit this week filed on the gender-affirming treatment care. This was filed by a 9-year-old Victor Vo, that's a pseudonym, and his parents. They're from Durham County. They filed this lawsuit because Victor is a transgender boy and they want for him to be able to get puberty blockers when puberty comes along, which is going to be pretty shortly. And they're not going to be able to under this law because the law grandfathered in people who were already getting treatments, but it did not grandfather in people, obviously people who hadn't yet gotten the treatments would not be eligible. So they're suing in federal court saying this is an infringement on their constitutional rights and on the parents' right to decide on medical care for their child.
Yeah, and I just think about being 9 years old and already, you've already got this big challenge in life, and now you're part of a federal lawsuit that will possibly go for years. And just, my heart goes out to that family. Frankly, that's my first initial thought on this thing as the state and federal courts wrestle with this issue.
Well, the other option those families have is to travel out of state to get medical care, and that's not easy. And if they are on Medicaid, excuse me, which the lawsuit also points out, Medicaid in the state also will not cover those treatments. So if they try to take it out of state and use Medicaid, they can't do that either.
Yeah. Speaking of hard things, we had a lot of hubbub this week over a resolution and a senatorial statement dealing with the war in Israel, the attacks that Hamas perpetrated on Israelis and the kidnappings and just the awful, awful situation that continues to play out over there. And at first, Laura, I thought we were going to get out of that with kind of the vote in the House was unanimous. That's where I was sitting.
104, yeah.
There weren't any really incendiary speeches that were given, and I thought, we've succeeded in getting through this without anyone throwing gasoline on the fire. But it turned out I did not realize at the time that 12 Democrats had declined in the House to vote for it. We call this taking a walk.
Right.
If you leave the House floor, you don't have to vote on something. You don't have to vote yes or no, and 12 of them did, and then that just became kind of a flashpoint for more back and forth on who supports what, and you're supporting terrorism, and it's calmed down a little bit, but it was a very tense few days there in North Carolina politics.
I mean, and the reason that the Democrats in the House and 4 Democrats in the Senate as well, and they kind of gave various reasons for it, but generally speaking, it was that they didn't want to condone war, or they'd felt that it didn't also take any recognition of the fact that there are people who are innocent people in Gaza and Palestine right now being bombed by the Israelis rather indiscriminately. And so, they just felt like it was a very one-sided resolution, and they didn't agree with it. Of course, this has gotten turned around at this point, so that Republicans are attacking them, saying that they're condoning Hamas, which there's a lot of room. There's a lot of daylight between condoning Hamas and not signing that resolution.
Yeah, Erin Pare, who is running for Congress, she put out a release that among the things she said is that these people were choosing to side with terrorists who murdered innocent babies.
No rhetoric there.
And people tend to, if you wonder in this country how we get to where we have trouble working with each other, people remember that sort of thing. I'll read what the crux of the House resolution. I think it's important to say, all right, here's what they were being asked to vote for. The crux of it was the United States Congress is urged to offer full and unequivocal support of Israel financially and otherwise for as long as it takes for Israel to bring justice in the light of the unprovoked attacks on innocent Israeli civilians. I know Pricey Harrison told the News and Observer that the Hamas attacks were evil, reprehensible. But she didn't vote on the resolution because she felt it condoned giving Israel carte blanche, just unconditional support. I mean, it does say that. So I think that was the reasoning for a number of the people who didn't vote for it. I saw Representative Marsha Moray, say on Twitter that the resolution was hollow. I saw Julie Von Hafen.
Well, and she also said, to point out, she said, I condemn violence against all civilians and children, including shutting off water, electricity, and food from children in Gaza.
Right, which is part of the response in Israel now. And telling, I saw today, that 1.1 million people in Gaza being told, hey, you need to evacuate.
How are you going to evacuate? It's sealed.
How are you going to do any of it? It's all
Yeah.
My thinking the last few days is that I know that part of the world is going to be hell for a little while, and I just kind of hope here that we can offer the support that we can, but without turning on each other. I think there are a lot of people who don't disagree that much on this really big issue who are so angry with each other right now. But it is what it is. I mean, people want to say what they want to say and feel it's really important to support Israel, particularly Israel. So.
Yeah, I was a little surprised by how much this blew up, not just at the legislature, but out, on the college campuses as well. So.
Oh my goodness, the college campuses with the students who have the flyer with a paraglider, like celebrating people gunning down innocent. I don't know that they meant to do it that way. And if y'all don't know what I'm talking about, I guess I'll just refer you
Watch
to
our coverage. Yeah, from UNC Chapel Hill yesterday. It was kind of crazy.
I was very thankful that we got through those demonstrations on college campuses yesterday, Thursday, without any serious violence.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where we are, where I'm legitimately worried that words become violent actions. So, and on the Senate side, I'll read what the sworn statement that 4 Democratic senators declined to sign on to. It said that everybody has a duty to condemn, stand with Israel, and affirm Israel's right to defend itself. It urged members of Congress to reaffirm this. It said that it was fitting to, quote, advocate and pray for the freedom and safety of those held hostage, to condemn the heinous acts of terror perpetrated by Hamas, and to stand with the people of Israel. So kind of a little bit different statement along the same lines, but did not call for the kind of Congress to financially, not that we all know what Congress is going to do. They're going to eventually reconstitute the House of Representatives.
When they can finally do anything anyway.
And I'm sure that, a financial package will be passed as needed. So
yeah. Yep. In the meantime, Mark Walker this week named himself acting governor.
Mark Robinson.
Mark
and
Robinson.
To be fair, the Constitution,
technically you can.
Some kind of weird language in our state constitution that until someone explains to me why it needs to continue to exist, probably ought to change. The Constitution said Mark Robinson's the acting governor.
Right.
Exactly what that means, I don't know.
Well, and I'm just thinking about, all of the, I've been here for almost 20 years and I've never seen a lieutenant governor become acting governor, because that was written before cell phones and the internet. Let's face it.
Right. And I mean, because Governor Roy Cooper is out of town, he's in Japan. The Constitution says if you're out of state, well, the lieutenant governor becomes the acting governor.
Right.
And I mean, it was clearly the Lieutenant Governor Robinson saw an opportunity to make a political statement that seems to have backfired on him pretty significantly, because his what he did as acting governor was call for a day of prayer for Israel and a week of solidarity with Israel. And what that became was reporters at his event that he called saying, hey, what about all these anti-Semitic, or at least arguably anti-Semitic things you have said repeatedly in the past on social media? Do you want to talk about that maybe?
Yeah, he said he regrets the wording, but not the contents.
Yeah, I don't know what that means. I guess I can, if I'm doing some work for him, because a lot of the things that he said or wrote were not... It was the anti-Semitism was kind of like along the path to a different message that has really kind of boiled down for him to, like, why do people keep bringing up Nazis? Why does the left keep talking about Nazis? What's really dangerous, the Nazis are gone. What's really dangerous these days, and what has been worse in our history than Nazism, is communism. So it's really like he's trying to criticize communism, but he's doing it in a way that is somewhat dismissive of the Holocaust.
Yep.
And just don't call press conferences where you have to say, hey, I'm not an anti-Semite. That you're not helping yourself.
Well, I don't know, though. I mean, I think what you do have is you have video, because, of course, it was being recorded, for his campaign purposes. You have video, and you have something you can point to saying, I did this proclamation. I did this declaration. So here's proof that I am not anti-Semitic.
Yeah, what else happened? Mind your business. I guess you just don't want anybody to ask any follow-ups there. The lieutenant governor apparently, according to Brian Anderson, our former colleague here at WRAL, invited the entire Council of State to stand with him, and none of them would. That should have been kind of a sign that maybe this was going to go off the rails. Dale Folwell, the state treasurer, who's running for governor against Mark Robinson, issued a statement blasting him. Mark Walker, former congressman who's also running the Republican campaign against the lieutenant governor for governor in 2024, issued a statement blasting him. Roy Cooper and Josh Stein issued statements blasting. When all these folks are kind of in agreement that it didn't go well.
Yeah, we should point out though that Lieutenant Governor Robinson is an equal opportunity offender on social media. He is certainly not exactly singled out Jewish people for anything. There's all kinds of comments to go all around in all kinds of different groups.
Yeah, and a lot of the coverage, a lot of the statements have said, I believe Dale Folwell said this specifically, that he has denied the Holocaust. I have not seen him do that in the way you may think. When you hear the Holocaust denier, that it didn't happen. I've not seen him say that.
He did put 6 million Jews in quotation marks.
In air quotes, yeah. Which I don't know how you justify that. And one of the things that he said was, here's a Facebook post I'll read. The center and leftist-leaning Weimar Republic put heavy gun ownership restrictions on German citizens long before the Nazis took power. This foolishness about Hitler disarming millions of Jews and then marching them off to concentration camps is a bunch of hogwash. So he's not saying it didn't happen, but he's got a sentence that's saying it's hogwash.
Yeah.
And you can just search the word hogwash on the man's personal Facebook page, and a whole bunch of stuff comes up, including this post, a post talking about breastfeeding, a post talking about the, quote, so-called civil rights movement. Good luck, Lieutenant Governor, making your nuanced arguments here about what you did and didn't say.
Yeah. In the meantime, we should mention.
We should take a break.
Yes, we should.
Let's take a break and let's hear from our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
And we're back with this week's wrap. I'm Laura Leslie, WRAL Capitol Bureau Chief.
Travis Fain, state government reporter.
All right. So Governor Cooper, in the meantime, is all in Japan, leading a trade mission, I think, over there for southeastern states, talking to a lot of the big manufacturers, including, Toyota's got a battery plant coming in here already.
Yeah, he said he's put out releases, I think daily since he's been over there. Toyota, Fujifilm, Bridgestone. He's met with all these top-ranking officials there. It's called, I can't remember what the conference, I think Southeastern United States / Japan Economic Conference. It's an annual event. It's going to be in Charlotte next year. So that's a pretty big deal. Cooper's office has said 225 businesses based in Japan have some sort of footprint here in North Carolina, employing something close to 30,000 people. So it's obviously a major trade partner. And as you mentioned, one that they're looking to grow. Toyota certainly had a recent announcement.
Absolutely.
Did Honda Jet? I know Honda Jet is over in
Greensboro. And
are they expanding? I can't remember. It's honestly, with all the economic development, it's hard to keep it all straight. But big deal.
In the meantime, we should mention that Medicaid is finally a go. CMS accepted North Carolina's plan, which we expected to happen.
Right.
But this means that it is officially going to happen on December 1st. So we have a date for all those people who have been waiting to get Medicaid coverage. They can now mark it on the calendar. Yeah,
300,000 people will be immediately on December 1st because they're part of the family planning part of Medicaid. So there is a very slim part of Medicaid where you just get family planning services, but the state knows that those people meet the requirements, the income requirements for real Medicaid.
So they can just roll them over.
They'll roll right over, and other people will need to apply. We've got kind of an FAQ online if you're hearing this and think, I need Medicaid. There are some steps you may need to take, and they're not that hard to find. So,
in the meantime, we should give a shout out to Lisa Sorg over at NC Newsline, which is formerly Policy Watch. She's doing a series on waste at Rebuild NC. Wow, there's some really eye-opening numbers in here.
Yeah, and so roughly 245 employees at Rebuild NC. This is the state's hurricane flooding recovery unit, which is obviously still trying to dig out from Matthew and
Florence.
Yeah. So 34 of the 245 people at Rebuild NC earn more than $100,000 a year. Over 4 years, the program spent more than $30 million to temporarily house displaced people. So hotels. The thing there being, hey, if you were rebuilding a little faster, you wouldn't have had to spend that money. Hundreds of thousands of dollars squandered on homes because of construction delays. Some justified, many not. And because of those construction delays, the home has now been further damaged by weather because it was an incomplete house or incomplete upgrade.
Right. And of course, as mentioned, of frequent policy changes, which I think we've seen some of. I mean, in the legislature, we just saw a new person brought over there as an advisor a few months ago. So, apparently that's just sort of part of a churn over there that's resulting in policy changes that are just making it really inefficient to process applications.
Yeah. One of the things that Lisa has highlighted here is that there's this job where she looked at the duties, and they were duplicating duties of people who already were working there. I don't know. It sounds like a mess. I look forward to reading the rest of the story. Lisa Sorg continues to be arguably the most impactful journalist in North Carolina.
Ooh. In the meantime, other stuff happening. Elections coming up, of course. Kristen Baker is not coming back. We don't know what her plans are. She might be eyeing a congressional seat. It's hard to say. We're waiting for those maps to surface, the congressional map to surface, and all three of them late next week.
Yeah, and this is a deadline that's y'all know when we say
it's movable.
Yeah, but supposedly next Friday-ish, we're going to get all three maps: House, Senate, and Congress. Like you said, Dr. Kristen Baker not running for re-election in the House. I expect we'll see other folks. It's time. It's December is when people are supposed to file for re-election.
Right.
And we're going to be seeing the map soon, and may have final maps by the end of October or early November. Seems like the voting schedule to finalize these. Pre-lawsuit finalize.
Right.
Because certainly.
It's going to court. I mean, actually, they've got every reason to put it off as long as possible, because then when it goes to court, they can say it's too close to the election to change it.
Yeah, although the number of paths to victory, not that it'll stop attorneys from trying, but the number of paths to victory to challenge these maps at this point are relatively few. Racial gerrymandering still illegal. Partisan gerrymandering is not. Although, look, I mean, one can be a stand-in for the other, and I'm sure that those arguments will be made going forward.
In the meantime, should also mention High Point Mayor Jay Wagner, this is according to the News Record, is going to be running for Congress in the 6th District. That's a seat that's currently held by Kathy Manning. I suspect we'll be seeing a lot more announcements both ways.
Right.
People quitting and people coming on here as these maps start to sort of percolate and people start looking at who lives in what district.
Right, and along those lines, we've been picking up a number of Speaker of the House Tim Moore events in places, some that are and some that aren't in his district, and it seems like he's running probably for Congress. I mean, we've kind of thought that would be a next step for him, and we still don't know. He hasn't said, but he has said he's not running. You're not going to be Speaker after next year, and he's not going to run for re-election to his House seat. And just the pattern. The pattern is there.
Yep. And one other big shout out we have to give is over to Catawba College. They've got a new Center for Politics, Civics, and Public Engagement in Democracy. And Michael Bitzer, everybody's favorite pundit, is going to be the director of that new center, and it's opening sometime in 2025. We're just hoping that he doesn't get so busy he can't take our calls. He's already there sometimes.
Yeah, that's right. He good luck and best wishes to him. One of the hardest working political scientists in the state, and someone you can call for thoughts on state level politics.
Just about anything, really.
Yeah, just about anything. Yeah.
So next week, I think there's no votes planned.
Yeah, I don't think we've got votes planned until the redistricting votes pop up, which
toward
is
the end of the month.
Yeah, which we think is toward the end of the month, and so I think the next big thing that we know of will be the maps coming out.
All right. Well, that's all we got then. We will encourage everybody have a great weekend. Maybe check out the fair if you think about it. And we will join you, or we hope you'll join us next week for the wrap.